Oh my God. So, yeah, one of the biggest problems, I have no idea what a podcast is. When I say that, I have in my repertoire of experience, I've seen, heard maybe 10 podcasts, and that's probably within the last 20 years. So you can't say I really know the form very well. But um, one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about lately is I've been thinking about history and the history of riding and the way that we know riding.
Hmm.
And looking, um, I can generalize what I'm saying and saying this is the way it is, but on a more personal level, when you're born, you are the first human at some point to ever see a horse.
Hmm.
And then we have, they usually attribute domestication horse between 3 and 4,000 BC.
Hmm.
So we'll say 4,000, 5,000 years, give or take, more or less. We have people trying to figure out what the hell to do with them, you know. Uh, and at different times in history and in different cultures, the answer has been different.
Hmm.
Okay. The system has changed as we understood more and more about horses. And so, what I find interesting, I'm not a history guy, I'm not so. It's a very weird thing. I listen to myself. I think, oh, it is because I'm not that academically oriented that I should slap myself upside the head and say, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Well,
But
even when you said you're not a history guy, I thought, oh, okay.
yeah. But the reason I think that is because I am a history guy, because I became so fascinated with horses that I reached a point where I wanted to know how it worked.
Right. Yeah, I was actually saying that exact same thing to one of our working students because a lot of our working students go to college and a lot of them are graduating soon. And I was telling them how I felt after I graduated, that it felt like I was stepping off a cliff. I'm like, I don't know where this is gonna go. And how I thought, oh, I'll probably want to go back to school. But now that I've been out for a while, I don't want to go back to school because now I can study whatever I want, how I want.
Yeah.
Because of horses, I'm interested in history and geometry and math
Well,
and drawing and music, all because of horses.
right. And what I would say to you is that that impulse is the same in you and I. And I think it's the same in anybody that's going to ever reach any kind of a skill level.
Hmm.
And
Right.
one of the things I found interesting is that relative to skill levels, each person has, like, it seems like they have their own limit. And I don't quite get this because I don't function on this level. And maybe you don't, and not maybe, I'm pretty sure you don't either. But I don't want to talk about somebody in particular. But, there's somebody I'm thinking about that I work with, and she got to a certain level, and that was it. Good enough.
Hmm.
That's all she wanted to know. That's all she wanted to teach. She
Hmm.
didn't want to get any further.
That's so
And
bizarre.
yeah, I that's what I think. But then what she did was she got to a place where she felt competent, and then it was good enough.
Yeah. Hmm.
But it's like she was running what I would say is a metaphor. She's running the Acme horse driving school. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, okay, turn left, turn right, stop, good enough. you know, go
Yeah.
you therefore on the road and duck and dive and see how you do.
Yeah, well, that's the way that most people think that riding is. Oh, can
Yeah.
you turn right? Can you turn left? Can you stop? Can you go?
Well, but the
But you know how
place,
to do everything.
well, we're in the same place in the sense when you start to know a little, you want to know more. When you start to know more, you want to know even more. At some point, you want to know a lot, and you're not happy with understanding a little.
Mhm.
Um, at least that's the way I think about it. But one of the things I was saying to you about history, reflecting on history, the general philosophy of riding comes out of military equitation. So if I said to you, let's look at equitation, the training of a horse as a whole. Okay, how long does it take to train a horse? And I'm making up a fantasy horse, and we're going to fantasy train. And just for as a metaphor, I'm going to say to you, it takes 400 training sessions to produce a trained horse. Okay, now this is totally an imaginary horse, where maybe we're teaching him to type.
Does the horse know this timeline?
I no, not yet. But let's say that in the classical school they develop 400 steps. Enter the military. The friggin' war would have been over 20 years before it even started if we had to train horses on that timeline. It takes a bullet, which at that back at even now, what the hell's a bullet? What's it, a buck, $2? You could shoot a horse. That's the end of all the training.
Hmm.
So how much time from a military point of view, if you have to fight on horseback or use horses, do you want to spend on training them when you consider what do you want out of them? You're not interested in anything except immediate use because boom, either the horse or the rider for about $2 is worth nothing,
Hmm.
other than chop meat.
Hmm.
So we said, well, it took 400 steps to train a horse. Military comes along and says, I can do it in 50. 90% of the horses, no problem. They get to the military level, not our level, but the military level to
Hmm.
fight on. Okay, good enough. And if some don't make it, some don't make it. Okay, someone else comes along and says, no, I can do it in 25. Whoop, the Army says, yay, let's do it in 20. Now think of it from the horse's point of view. Okay, 400 steps. Well, you don't need all 400 steps because if I'm teaching you something and I'm teaching it to you well, the point is not the thing. The point is the process.
Hmm.
So if I can teach you to think A, B, C, D, all right, when you enter into a problem, you can say, A, B, C, D. But
Hmm.
if all you know is A and all you know is D, you're screwed unless it works automatically. See, what the military training depended on was herd instinct. All right, it had to be quick. And what they did is latch the horses onto the end of the columns, with exceptions, because they did have like an elite. All right, in most of the military riding in Europe, there were always two levels of riding, or
Hmm.
more, sometimes three. But the two levels would be this is what we teach them, the soldiers, all right, and this is how it's really done. And
Hmm.
there's always been that kind of a oddity.
Huh.
All right. Yeah. So, when we think about riding and we think about training unintentionally, all right, we're talking about military riding.
Hmm.
Okay. But it misses what's the one thing that you want from a soldier? You want them to obey orders. What do you want from a friend?
When to listen to you. Mhm.
We don't work horses like they're going to war.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I mean, we can, but what we're working for with our horses is to be friends with our horse,
Mm-hmm.
because the real high level riding you can't make the horse do, but the
Right.
horse will happily do all the fancy crap for its friend.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've gotten older, what I've come to appreciate is that's really what it's all about. So one of the things that we're similar with is that we both want to know how to be a better friend to the horse. That's what good equitation's about. So if we want to define dressage correctly, dressage is the art of becoming a friend with your horse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
Okay. Right. And then I think, yeah, that's really true. And then I think about modern dressage. You can't see it.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how you treat your friends, but when I look at modern dressage, I think, oh, yeah, if I was in the army, I think, yeah, that's almost actually, if I was in the army, I'd say, well, they're kind of crappy soldiers, but that'll do.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
is,
if
I
you
mean,
treated human friends that way, you probably wouldn't have any.
well, that's just it. Like at the end of the day, or your weekend comes and you kick back and you think, oh yeah, what I need is to spend the weekend with my drill sergeant. you
Yeah.
know, and um, I think um, I think competition and the military stuff go hand in hand. And one of the things that the military did do in the latter days of the cavalry is that there wasn't enough time for the modern cavalry officer to learn to ride. So what they did was they made riding a game.
Hmm.
They supported polo, they supported hunting, they supported combined training. They started. It's because a soldier that is learning how to fight all day long doesn't have the time to go out and ride.
Hmm.
One that can't wait to compete is going to say, "Oh yeah, I get off at 5, but now I could ride a couple hours."
Yeah.
Something along those lines. But one of the things that occurs to me is just how much of a distortion that is. Is
Yeah.
because what we're doing here, and I think because of my retirement, but what we're doing here in my mind when I'm working, I'm not doing it for anyone. I'm only doing it for the horse. And I don't care about the result, which isn't to say that I'm deliberately being cavalier. But what I'm looking for is an authenticity with the horse,
Hmm.
And so everything becomes simpler, 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 and it starts becoming more and more about the mindset.
Hmm.
Okay, and I think, well, how do I get here? Because one of the things I find interesting is the challenge of how long do you have to go through the beginning, intermediate, and advanced stage before you can get beyond the beginning, the intermediate, and the advanced stage.
Hmm. Yeah.
There's a point where you don't really have a level anymore.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, because you and I are in about the same place. It's not necessarily, I mean, I'm older, so I get to have more experience than you. But there's a certain kind of a mindset where, like you look at my work, I look at your work, and the thing is, on a good day, you look and you think, oh, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, that's a way to do that. Or you say, yeah, well, that makes sense. Eh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
of course,
Well,
that's what you should be
the way
doing.
I kind of think of it is like, I never really think like, oh, I'm an advanced rider.
Right.
But I mean, obviously, if I'm looking for a horse or something like that and I see that, it's like, well, I know I can handle the horse, but I never come at the horse with the attitude of, I'm an advanced rider. The only time I ever think that is if I read it or something like that. And the only
Right.
reason I know that I'm better is because people have a problem with the horse and then I can take the horse and I don't have the problem.
Well, that's because we're not doing anything except talking to the horse. And
Mhm.
if you think about it linguistically, when you let's say you're learning, it doesn't matter what language, we say, well, you're learning English. How do you learn English? You speak it. When
Mhm.
you first speak it, you don't speak it so well. But if you speak enough of it, you get better and better at it. And
Mhm.
one of the advantages that both you and I have in doing this professionally, okay, is the amount of hours in the course of the day we speak the language.
Mhm.
And there was a time where I was thinking to myself, I was thinking, I could just give up human language. I could just,
I'm sure you
you
could
know,
do that of all
yeah, you
people.
know how likely that is. But I mean, I was, at that time I wasn't teaching. I was doing that. I was riding about somewhere between 10 and 15 horses a day.
Mhm.
Easy day would be 10.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I was basically getting off, foot hits the ground, my foot would be in the next stirrup,
Mhm.
and I'd be up,
Mhm.
and it'd be bump, 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 bump. I had three grooms feeding me horses. So
Mhm.
there was always a horse. But it's a language and you get better at it by speaking it.
Mhm.
So there's the intellectual part, and if you want to, if we know the intellectual part, I can say to you, study the intellectual part, and you've done some of that. I think you've done comparatively speaking, the way most people, you've done a lot of that. All right, but that's neither here nor there. But that what that does is it gives you access to certain ideas, which when we're riding, sometimes what I'm sure this must happen to you too. You'll get a moment on the horse where suddenly you remember a sentence or two from a book, and
Mhm.
you go, "Oh, that's what they were talking about."
Yeah, or something you said to me.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Always it's something I said to you,
Not always.
uh, yeah, but at any rate,
Well, it's funny you're thinking about this because I'm sure, well, I've been thinking about it too, but you a lot of times we're thinking about the same stuff. But with those, like particularly that young paint horse we have right now, it's like I can't believe somebody, not that these owners did that, but that a lot of people would just send that horse to somebody in 30 to 60 days and
yeah,
just get on them, put on
yeah,
them 30, 60 days. And it's like that horse isn't even close to being ready. It's like,
yeah.
I was thinking about that when I was bridling him today. I'm like, it would be insane to get on this horse right
Yeah.
now. And it would be so
It's like,
unfair to him.
yeah, it's like, why bother? Why would you
Yeah.
bother?
And
What's the
so I'm
point?
like thinking, like, why would you even put that money into having somebody ruin your horse in 30 to 90 days? Basically,
Well,
because when you rush that, you always create problems that you're going to be
yes.
dealing with the rest of the horse's life. It's like instead of wasting your money and putting it into 30 to 60 days, why don't you take the time to actually train the horse correctly? And then you're not going to have as many issues. And it's like there's
I was the, but I was the guy, I've been the guy who's done the 30, 60, 90-day thing. I've done it for when I say most of my life, more than, I mean, I'm kind of ashamed of having had done that, but I went that route. I learned that route and I came to where I am now with the wisdom of knowing why I shouldn't have done it back then.
yeah, and how many times doing that did your life flash before your eyes?
Well, actually, because I was working with some pretty dangerous horses, so
Mhm.
I got pretty good at ducking and weaving, and at that time in the early days, the way that I would train and work a horse was fighting with it. I could fight the horse longer, all right, and more aggressively to make the horse quit fighting me. Or another way of putting it is I was such a pain in the ass that when someone else got on the horse, The only thing the horse was thankful for was that it wasn't me. And
I'm
that's
glad
a
you're
trade.
honest.
And that's a trained horse. Well, no, I desensitized the horse because after the crap I put the horse through, the horse could walk through hot coals and it wouldn't bother him. And but I mean, I'm being, it's comedic, but it's actually blunt. It's actually true. I mean, I didn't want to be like that.
Mhm.
So, like when you say, well, why do they do it? And the reason they do it is because it's what everybody does. And
Right.
everybody does it because at some point, those who are smart figure out that nobody really knows what they're doing and everybody's faking it. And those that aren't so smart know that there is a correct order and a correct way to do it. And those that eventually want to be on the path and are smart enough know that there's a correct way, but God, this isn't it, but this is the only thing I know right now, and then
Right.
keep asking the questions until where ultimately, if their heart is on the horse, they find the correct way.
Hmm.
And I think about that. I think about how that happens, and it's like I would like to be, if I had a magic wand, I would change it and change the way people do it. But people do it in the way they do it. And they live on the fear and the adrenaline of a horse that doesn't know better. And then they bully it until such time as either the horse scares the crap out of them, in which case the horse becomes professionally trained, or lives in the pasture.
Yep.
I mean, and then you think about, well, how do you, I want to be able to take a beginner. The weird question would be if I could do it the way that, when I say the way I want to do it, be in complete control over it. My first thing is I wouldn't put, when you came for a lesson, I'd never put somebody on a horse the first day. I'd have them come out for a month or more to learn to groom and to do
Hmm.
the work in hand on the ground.
Hmm.
I mean, the way, and then you think about, well, in a weird way, I want to say to you, that's the best way. But
Yeah.
the
Well,
reason you don't do it is
one of
because
the
nobody
things,
can do it.
one of the things I was thinking last week is like how much information there is because I did a beginner first lesson and I don't do those very often anymore. Maddie usually does them, and how when I do those lessons now, how detail oriented I am. And like I could do the whole first lesson on the half halt.
Yeah, right.
It's because there's so much information and so much detail, and all those little details make the world a difference. Even just bringing the horse in from the paddock.
Well, and going back to the military thing that I was saying, there's the military problem. How do you take somebody who knows nothing and you say, okay, in 90 days, 30 days, 60 days, you're going to be in combat, firing guns off of this thing and having people shooting at you, with
Mhm.
hundreds of these running horses running around you in circles. How the frig is that going to work?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Pretty
you know,
wild.
you know, and it's like, then compare it to civilian riding lessons are very tame. It's only a little terror.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But what I was saying about the history, you can see, like if you do it, we make a new rule with the whole world has to do it our way. Boy, a lot of people will be bored because the what's triggered in us is the happy drug because we get endorphin oriented, not the adrenaline. And
Mhm.
it's not that the adrenaline that there can be adrenaline there. You're entitled to it, but fundamentally, become more endorphin fiend.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, bliss,
Mhm. Yeah.
floating through
Well,
the air.
right. One of my clients last week was we were working a lot on her learning to follow the horse, and be moving with the horse and their centers aligning. And she goes, you know, those moments where I have that, where I feel like I'm right with the horse, she said, that's my favorite moments. It's more fun than trotting and cantering. And I'm like, yep, now you get it.
Yep.
Sometimes I'll be doing a training ride and I'm so fascinated about being with the horse that all of a sudden I go, oh, I haven't even trotted or cantered or done any fancy crap yet.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. You just get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I find I think that's to see that's introducing both you and the horse into friendship and to talking to each other. That's why it's so interesting.
Mhm.
I mean, and yeah, I think that I understand the other view because I came from it.
Yeah,
But
well, I
but
would
then
be
again,
lying if I didn't say I started working with you because I didn't have expensive horses and I wanted to do fancy crap. And now that I can do the fancy crap, I don't really think about it that much
yeah,
because it's
yeah, yeah,
more about just being with the horse.
yeah. And that's the big difference. People want to learn to do things on the horse before they learn how to be with the horse. And
Mhm.
the truth is, you need to learn to be with the horse first. And if you really want to do this, the most difficult thing about learning riding and horsemanship is that you need to have the overview to understand the work. And you can't get the overview, all right, unless you know the particulars, and you can't learn the particulars correctly without the overview.
Mhm.
It's like the problem to me, which becomes fundamentally clear, is we've all learned within our world the rain effects. The rains do this happen. We learn all these things. This is how you do this movement or the other movement. But it's like, and now you do this aid, and then this one, and then
Mhm.
and it's not a song.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a flow. Now I know people that have started the other way. All they learned was the flow.
Mhm.
So I can see you can teach it from either end, but when you know the flow and it don't flow, you're screwed. You don't know what to do.
Mhm. Yeah.
When it don't flow and you know the other way, you always know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, it'll lead you. You're looking for it. There's something to do, and you'll never be bored. And then when you finally give it up and get back to the flow, you find it's there.
Mhm.
You
Okay, well,
know,
maybe that should end our flow.
yeah, because yeah, you think.
All right.
All right, as usual, it was real,
Yep.
or whatever version thereof this was,
Mhm.
and we shall see you when we see you again.
Sounds good. Till next time.
Yep.